stairway can be treacherous.
All right, well, let's roll then. Like, we've already started then.
Yeah, go for
This
it.
is the start. Welcome to episode 1 of Come to Where I'm From. I'm Joseph Arthur, and this is our first guest, Mr. Jesse Malin.
Hello, Joe.
Nice to see you.
It's good to see you.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Happy to see you.
Down here in this basement, I love it.
What do you think?
I like the brownie sign.
Is that the original sign that was outside Brownies, or was
I'm
that?
not sure. I don't know. I played Brownies a whole bunch, but I don't remember exactly all the signs. But it's kind of where I started out actually doing my solo stuff every Wednesday night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
A residency.
Yeah, me and a guy named Joe McGinty. He was a great piano player. He lived around the corner on 9th Street. And Mike Studo, who was running Brownies, he let us come every Wednesday. And in fact, before I made my first solo record, I made a little EP to sell at gigs. It was called the 169 EP. Because
Are you kidding?
169 Avenue Way.
That's crazy.
Yeah, my friend Colin Burns, like, you'll appreciate this. He kind of like silkscreened the art on these like cardboard, like thick cardboard little sleeves. So it was like real home baked kind of stuff. And we sold them on the first tour before I made Fine Art of Self-Destruction. 169 EP. I think I still got a couple of them.
169.
Brownies.
Are you into numbers?
Sometimes.
Do numbers speak to you?
I don't know. Like when I'm on like treadmills and stuff, I start thinking about numbers and like, you know, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to bring it up to this at this time and then back. You play tricks in your head just to get through the workout, but that's about it, I think. I mean, there's some numbers I like.
I just like see recurring numbers a lot. Like 6-9 is one I see a lot.
Oh, yeah.
3-3-3, 11-11, spirit number type
Yeah, I like
thing.
11-11. I need to see 6-9 more often, but
Yeah. So, and then you made the Fine Art of Self-Destruction.
yeah, I made my first solo record produced by Ryan Adams,
Right.
and we did it at a studio called Loho on Clinton Street, which I think the Blue Man Group or somebody bought now, but it was engineered by a guy named Tom Schick, who is
I know
great,
Tom.
Yeah, great guy.
I work with Tom.
Great engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he went on to do all kinds of stuff. Now I moved to Chicago. I
now
think
he's
Jeff
with-
Tweedy,
Jeff Tweedy took him over.
sucked him up. Yeah.
Yeah, let us have Tom back, Jeff.
But around that time, you know, I had only been in bands before and played, you know, from hardcore bands when I was a kid up, and then, you know, it was band Hope I had in Bellevue, but Degeneration. And going solo, I was scared as shit. And, you know, my manager, Diane, would push me a lot to go and, you know, play alone. And on the first tours that I did, it was just me alone acoustic. So I didn't have a guitar tech. If the guitar was out of tune or out of capo, I would just talk to the audience in these theaters in Europe. And so I just come up with these bits of my life, and it became like these stage bits. But around that time is when I met you. I think
That's
we
where
met
I
at the
first saw
living
you.
room, I think.
At the living room.
Yeah, I had heard about you, you know, from just a lot of tastemaker folks and fans and, you know, friends of mine that really into music or worked in the music business, record people. They'd be talking about this kid that Peter Gabriel found, and he's really great. And we kind of crossed paths, I think, one night. Was that the original living room?
Yeah.
It was funny because it
Where
was
was
like
that?
it almost
Where
felt like
was
it was
the
on
original one? Stanton?
Stanton and Allen, I think, and I lived around the
Yeah.
corner, so I just walked down the street, and it was very much like the door was just open, and you just kind of walked in like you were walking into a deli or a coffee shop or something, and right there on the ground level, you know, was all this great action happening in there.
That one had the magic.
Yeah.
And then the next one had some magic too. But I never went to the other one in Brooklyn.
That I never made it out to either.
Yeah.
You know, but they were great people that ran it.
Steve.
Jennifer. And,
Yes, Jennifer and Steve.
And then I had a CD for years before we really knew each other, like Live at the Living Room, and it was you were on it and I was on it, and we were both on the cover, and a couple other artists and stuff, maybe Jesse Harris or somebody like that. Yeah, so a couple Jessies and a Joe. So, but then over time, I guess we just kept me and you our trails. I don't know what was the next thing that we really connected on. I know a lot's happened since the early days, but different things.
Yeah. So what was it like going from being a solo or being in Degeneration to going solo? Like, what was that transition like?
Well, I was really scared to be called Jesse Malin, even though that's my name. But it was like, you know, it was being in a band. And even though I wrote most of the songs in a lot of my bands, and some of them, you know, were completely my thing, there was some kind of safety in being in numbers, you know, being in a gang and hiding behind, you know, 3 or 4 other people. And Degeneration was a real group. Like, it was 5 friends that grew up together that, liked the same music generally for the most part. Had all these inside jokes, like real
Yeah.
brotherhood from Queens.
And that was like 8 years on, right? Like
8 years on, but we knew each other way longer than that. Danny, the guitarist, had been in Heart Attack with me, my hardcore band, for a bit.
And you started that when you were 12?
Yeah, I did that
That's
from when I was
crazy.
12 to 16. Because they had, New York was different. You didn't have to ID anybody. It was anything goes. The late 70s, early 80s, and we auditioned at CBGB's. I called the CBGB's had an audition showcase on Monday nights, and I called from the school payphone and booked an audition. And the only requirement was, they said, was you had to play original music.
Right.
But the other requirement was you had to bring like 30 people that drank.
And you didn't.
We didn't know anybody, so we failed.
I know. I heard the story.
But we got the Max's gig out of it. So
What, Max?
Max's Kansas City.
Oh, really?
Some guy
You
was
played
there.
Max's Kansas City?
Yeah.
When did that close?
I think it closed in 81.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
The last year was a lot of hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, so, I guess being bands, there was a certain thing, but like a safety, a fun, a gang thing. But then, like with Degeneration, we wrote songs that we didn't think were just like mindless, penis and tits bullshit, like Cars and, all that stuff, and it was egotistical maybe, but we were trying to have something to say, and it was kind of social commentary or this and that, and it didn't matter what we sang about. People would just write about our hair or our shoes.
What do you mean egotistical?
I'm just saying we weren't, like it wasn't all about like, look at me, baby, and I got such a big one, and check out my car, and I can't ride 55, and all that kind of cock rock. It wasn't that. There might have been some of that in there, but not.
Right.
We were really more into telling stories and lyrics that maybe somebody would listen to.
Yeah,
but it didn't seem to be the case.
You're super into that still.
I was always into that, I guess, as being a little kid, but it just seemed to me that like wherever we went, it was just more about the image. And then as we started to get more into the mid-'90s, when punk rock was coming back again with groups like Rancid and Offspring and Green Day, and even the crowds we had, they were more into being in a mosh circle.
Right.
And we could have been singing anything. So it was a little frustrating. We'd make these records and put a lot into it. But then the touring was like really feeding to that dance floor. And
I remember, because I started playing in the 90s too, and it was all just about how you could get people to mosh right in front of you.
Yeah.
It wasn't about like songs and listening.
And we thought we could get like a
much.
combination, because I used to go to class shows or specials and everybody's dancing and it's a thing, but this was just about this mindless thing. And I had left the hardcore scene in the mid-'80s because I felt it got too macho and too metal, and it wasn't why I got into it in the first place. But now it's the late 90s, and I just started listening to a lot of the stuff that I'd always had in my head since I was a kid. Jim Croce and Neil Young and Elton John's early records that were very lyrical with Bernie Taupin, and the Bruce record Nebraska, which was the record that got me into Bruce Springsteen because it was so stripped down and so stark and so lyrically real. And then things like Elvis Costello and Billy Bragg and The Jam, and just stuff that was song driven. And
is that why Degeneration broke up, or was there personal things?
I think we did our 7 years, and we had a few different record contracts, and I think we were pretty misunderstood. We only did well in major cities for the most part. So when we were out there, it was us fighting the world pretty much. It was us against the world. Like every night in any other city, we'd get hit with chains, or we'd get beat up or chased or not appreciated.
Oh, really?
So it was fun. If we were in LA, it was great. We had a great thing.
You got chased around?
Yeah, a lot of weird stuff. And if we didn't go over on stage, at the shows, we felt really empty. So we would try to make up for it in the hotel bedroom, or whatever. Try to find a way to make yourself feel better about things. But it was good in New York, and it was good in Chicago, and in certain tours. It just we had a few bad breaks, and I think we were kind of doing something, I guess, not, wow, we were inventing the wheel, but it was before rock came back again, like in the early 2000s with groups like Strokes and White Stripes. But it was in a time when we were kind of in our last record, that Cookie Monster kind of baggy potato sack pants, and you had to have some turntables and a guy in a deep voice rapping with you while you played rock. Like it was that kind of, Cookie Monster stuff. So
Cookie Monster?
It was really,
like, rah.
it was a lot of that. And then we just made the band because we wanted to make a band that would be the band we would have wished we could have saw or been in if we were alive, in the 70s or something, when
Right.
pre-war on drugs, pre-war on sex, pre-AIDS kind of time. And we came up in New York. Giuliani was mayor, and they were clamping down on dancing and walking down the street. Like everybody was going through the system. And this is obviously before 9/11, but we tried to make a band that we'd want to go see as kids, and it was influenced by the Dolls and the Replacements and the Stooges and the Stones, and it was our poor man's version of that 5-piece thing with 2 guitars and a singer. And I always wrote songs on the guitar, and as a kid, I'd listen to Chuck Berry for his lyrics and songs, and Jim Croce and all that. But when I got into that band, it was
I
just
didn't know
about
you were
being
a Croce fan.
physical. Yeah, I guess I said it twice.
Yeah.
But I got it to Kiss too. I don't know if that the lyrics there might not really fit into that box, but
some of them are good.
it was just time to do something different, and I wanted to strip it back down. So I started playing acoustically and playing here every Wednesday night. And at one point, it was going to be called a band, and then somebody said to me, "You're scared to be Jesse Malin." They said, "You pay for the rehearsals, you write the songs, why don't you just be yourself?" And then I was like, I pictured I'd have to sit down and wear hush puppies and have a mustache and learn to finger pick, and it would be like James Taylor, who's great, but like it's very adult. And then I watched some of my other friends like Ryan go and do it, and Pete Yorn was doing it, and there was people like getting a lot of respect. But even at that time, at the same time, there was all those bands like the Strokes, the Thrills, the Kills, the Yay. Everybody was the Thes. So I'd walk through the airport, the Killers, and people would say, I'd see you with a guitar, and what band are you in? And I'd be like, Jesse Malin, and
I know.
And then they'd be like,
I hate that
too. And I'd be like, well, then I'd tell people I'm in the Jesse Malins, or I'm like, Jesse Malin, like Leonard Skinner, like Jethro Tull.
What's your band? I'm Joseph Arthur.
Yeah, it's a band.
One.
I have people to play with me, actually, other musicians. But
that first solo album was pretty real successful.
It was
like in the UK, especially. I remember Uncut made it Album of the Month, which was a huge deal.
It was really nice because, like I was saying, not being understood, or people not really listening to the lyrics, or people would write about my old band, with Degeneration, and it wasn't what we were trying to achieve, what we thought we were, and then we'd hear sound like we were some tribute to the Sunset Strip or something. And then with the solo stuff, which we weren't, but at least we didn't think we were. I don't think so. The solo stuff, it was like, wow, what I was writing and feeling, and then the reviews and stuff was positive, and they actually listened to the songs. Yeah.
Those were great songs. I mean, I remember being blown away when I came and saw it at the living room. I was like, man, this guy's great. And I was kind of, pretty strict, like critically. Like then I was judgy. And you definitely
you had some crazy
blew me away.
Good input, though. You said to me, I always remember, you said, when you produce your record, you should make it sound like that early, like that first two, or one of those first 2 Bruce Springsteen records, like real lo-fi, like like the Wild and Innocent or Greetings. Like you should go for that kind of sound. And I kind of knew what you were thinking there.
Wasn't Bruce involved in that first record, or was it the second one?
Yeah, he was involved in the third record.
Oh, in the third one.
But with the first record, it's a funny thing. They always say with people, you have your whole life to write your first record, and then that's why people's second records are kind of, they have to write it on the road within a few months, and it's that sophomore slump. And not every band, like Zeppelin 2, is probably just as good as Zeppelin 1. There's exceptions, but as a kid, we noticed this shit because I loved the Cars' first album so much. And then the second record's good, but it wasn't the same, and Van Halen, which I did like that first album, I have to tell you that.
Well,
the
of course,
second record,
running with the devil.
Starts out your life right there. But, the second record we noticed, and, I didn't know what the point was or why this was, that there was a lot of these, second album slumps. So that being said, writing The Fine Art of Self-Destruction wasn't my first record. I had made records before. But I had always been writing for other people with the consciousness of there's 4 other guys in this band, and if I'm going to write lyrics, they got to stand up there and it's got to represent the band. And when the solo record came, it was kind of like, wow, I can be my own shrink. It was like I could take the whole couch and just tell my personal story or my feelings. And so there was a liberation in that and a more personal way of talking. And also at the time, I had been broken up with this girl, and I thought that if I wrote some of these songs and she heard them, that maybe I could get her attention. It's always helpful as a writer if you think there's somebody listening, whether you're mad at somebody or you're trying to get back at someone, revenge or love, or get their attention. And I have a song years later called The Archer, which is about Well, it was about J.D. Salinger and how he would write these letters to these girls in his later years, and they were like these little arrows. That's how he tried to like connect and hook up with women and get a letter from J.D. Salinger, some actress on a TV show. And so, sometimes I thought of that, and I wrote this on The Archer.
Why The Archer?
Because someone like sending out like these little arrows, like Cupid or something, and them being these notes. And for me, having that, wanting to make this statement and maybe get over this breakup, this relationship, or get it back, or try to win this person back, and none of that really worked out exactly. But in that process, with those real things, and a couple songs, it's all autobiographical in some sense. Sometimes you change the words to protect the guilty, but it was able to really be a liberating thing. And we did that record really fast in 5 days. And when I listen to it now, I could hear I'm still learning a new voice from like the Degeneration voice. But more than anything, it's just I'm always grateful that anytime you make a record or whatever, that is a chance to a rebirth, or a chance to do something again, or have a second stab or third or 10th shot at just being out there, and that someone is going to maybe listen to this, and you create this thing like you're an artist, you're a singer, and then you get to put it out into the world, and you get to sing it over microphones in public. It's like standing up and you speak, and you feel from the room if it's true or not, if it rings true when you get up in front of your peers in a dark, pissed out smelling room and say these things over a dirty microphone.
Yeah, well, what do you think is the secret of your perseverance in all this?
I really enjoy doing it. I really think I can't think of anything else. We used to say, what else we do? Rob banks or whatever.
Right.
Like, there's something really like an exorcism or some cleansing about, especially playing live. You sweat out all this poison of life, and it feels really good to play music, and it feels even better to do it with people that are good and that you like. I'm very grateful for the musicians in my band that I've had for the last 5-6 years. Like, they make me look good.
Yeah, well, you have a real band now. It seems like
it's hard to keep that together because the music business is tougher. And
that's what I mean, though, about the perseverance, because it's hard to survive.
You got to be hungry, I guess, and I still get excited, like with a new record every time. Like it feels like close to like I still get that thing waiting for the test pressing and the artwork to come in, and just to see that. I mean, and then to hear it, like we used to do, a lot of people when they make records, they do a car test. Go in the car. It's very, like in California, in the parking lot, we listen to the mix. But we do the bar test here in New York. We go in a bar and we listen to it with a bunch of people around.
I remember when we made the EP. Yeah. Well, I feel like the new record feels like a first record.
Well,
I've been listening to it, and it just it has that feeling of like that sort of hunger to it.
Worked long and hard on it, as you know. And it was the first time with a new manager I had who just said, keep writing. And, we went through like 40 songs maybe to get to, I think, 19 that we recorded, maybe 22. But, it doesn't mean that's good, because everybody you can write a ton of songs. And what I've learned is editing is a big part of it. Having a producer sometimes is someone to tell you, don't do this or do that. And when I look back to my first record, I had this one song. It meant so much to me. And Ryan said, oh, that's a B-side. And I was like, really? It's got the sax and the Tom Waits groove. And looking back at it, it's called Stranger Than Fools. And it clearly was the B-side out of the bunch. But when you're in it, it's like all your kids. You love them very equally. Or all new toys. Sometimes it's the newest thing. You want to play with that song. And just because it's the Emperor's New Clothes. But this record, it was just, I think just a lot of heavy stuff happened while we were making it. It was humbling. I think not having a full album out in a bunch of years, as you kind of miss being in the studio or in a place where you're going to come and put forth something. And I felt like I had a lot to say, and a lot of things that had hit me, a lot of loss, deaths, and things that just kind of put you in perspective of what really matters. And sometimes all the bullshit and all the things you're waiting to get this and get this great review or play this tour, sometimes you just got to sit back and be like, wow, I enjoy just playing this song, like, and that makes me happy, and to stay on inside of that. So I think there's some of that with this record.
I like this line in My Little Life Won't Go Away Easy.
Oh yeah,
that's cool.
That song was
that's how it ends still? Or is that going to be the closer?
That's the closer of the record, yeah. My Little Life kind of, I
It's one of my
have some people
favorites.
in my family, and I've had some close friends that have a real hard time with life. I mean, everybody does. Like, you know, we get depressed, we need certain things, you have rough days.
Yeah.
But people that just going into a store to talk to somebody and ask for something, or people just going out of their house is like so hard. Like, they're so shy and scared, and life is just so heavy that I've just witnessed that and thought, wow, you know, I can't imagine what that's like.
Because life isn't that hard for you?
Well, it can be real hard. I've had a lot of hard stuff, but where it's like I enjoy it, but some people just take it. It's really like a battle, and those people can be perceived as like, because they're quiet and scared, like antisocial, like I say in the song, or, you know, like they could be like they're snobs or they're mean or whatever. Meanwhile, inside they're just like really struggling with it, and I've just witnessed that with some people I love. So I kind of wanted to try to write from their perspective.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like having an outlet, a creative outlet, is what maybe gives us that fuel and energy in life. If you don't have that, you know, and going into a store, I don't know, everything maybe hits you harder.
Yeah.
Because it's like your projects or your creativity is what kind of like sails you through the streets, you know.
And I've had pieces of that where I've been really hungover on a Sunday and just got, you know, your nervous system so worn down, and, you know, I don't want to even go to see anybody at the deli, or I've got to go into this, you know, fruit market on Avenue A and hope because I don't feel like I can't even talk because I'm so hungover. It hasn't happened in a long time, but I kind of can't imagine feeling like that every day, you know. And you have so many outlets where, you know, you paint and you work out and you box and you make music, and
I need them all.
I remember going to see you at Bowery Ballroom, and I was like, this guy's on stage playing a show and he's painting like a 15-foot canvas
like
behind him
at
the same time. He's doing a painting and playing a gig, and then he sells the painting at the end of the gig. I'm like,
it's for sale.
Yeah. I've seen it sell. Like, I was just like, what a cool thing. But
hey, so where'd you get the title Sunset Kids?
Well, we had a few titles.
I like that title.
Yeah, we had a few titles, and I guess not to be morbid about it, but, you know, we went out to L.A. to see the record, to start at the top of it. Lucinda Williams, who produced the record.
Right, Lucinda, we
didn't know. We went out to Los Angeles because she invited me to see her open for Tom Petty. It was the last night of his tour.
I saw that show.
At the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
And she was playing an hour set.
I went with Mandy, our good friend Mandy. Shout out to Mandy.
Mandy Stein.
Mandy Stein.
We love you.
We love you.
So she said, you want to come, you know, any of these nights? We play an hour, and Hollywood Bowl outside and end of the summer.
Wow.
And I'd seen Tom Petty before, but I feel like I hadn't seen the
I never had.
gig.
That was my first.
Yeah. I'd seen a couple, and, you know, they were boring. Not to,
really?
to diss the Dead or such a great artist, but I went to the Garden, and I was like, I could just listen to the record at home, you know, I don't know. And then I went another time. So I was a little hesitant, but people said, this tour, they're really, you know,
it was
it's just
amazing.
a special tour. So I asked my manager to go because he was, like, talking about some things, and he was like, yeah, you should go out there. And we, you know, I was like, all right, let's go then. Let's go check this out. And we went, and Lucinda played this hour. We're out at the Hollywood Bowl, and then we go backstage, and I start talking to Lucinda, how you doing? And it was so good to see her play this great gig in this beautiful place, and people loved her, and as they should. The band killed it. And I said, how's Tom doing? You know, how's it going to be tonight? She said, he's sick, you know. And I said, she said, he's got a cold, but he's smoking. I was like, oh, boy, this is going to be a weird show. Now I'm going to see my third Tom Petty show, and it's not going to be good. I really need a good Tom Petty show. So we went out to the seats, and we're sitting there, and my manager goes, you know, this is the last show. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, this is the last Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers show. And I said, you're not right. I heard he loved this tour, and he got up on the airplane, and he said, we're going to do a lot more. And he said, I don't know. I heard it's the last one. And we just argued. So we watched the show, and it was so good. Like,
so good.
Amazing. I don't know
was.
what was in the air that night. Maybe the whole tour was like this. I was blown away.
I was, too.
And there's a song on that record that stood out on that record, Wildflowers. And
like all of them.
Yeah,
almost.
But there was one, you know, that stood out that night. But in the past, I hadn't really noticed this song because maybe there's 15 songs on that record. I don't know if it's when CDs came out and people
it's one of those
like,
too long ones, but you're glad it's too long.
Yeah. So he played this song, "Crawling Back to You," that night in California under the stars, and in the last verse, I don't remember it that well exactly. He said something like, "Me and my sidekick, I was drunk, and he was my sidekick. I was drunk and he was sick. We got into a barroom fight, and then an Indian shot out the light, and then it said, "The things I worry about don't happen anyway." Something like that. But that line, "the things I worry about don't happen anyway," stood out. And the way he delivered the whole verse, I was like, I needed to hear that now.
I need to hear that right now, actually. That just gave me goosebumps.
So it was just so great. And, I bumped into all these people at the show, and we left, and me and my manager walked out, and he keeps saying, "This is the last show," and we bought one of those $5 bootleg T-shirts outside on the hill. And I wish I kept mine, which is silly. I don't know where it ended up.
I think Mandy did get one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I went with Mandy.
And the next night we had dinner with Lucinda, and we started talking about ideas of doing a record. And I guess a while before that, there was a Rolling Stone piece where she interviewed me and I interviewed her. And then there was a journalist in the middle, and they said, how about, a collaboration? So it planted this seed. So we just talked about it. And she had been working with a guy named David Bianco, who had done Wildflowers and done a million things, but he worked on a few Petty records. But Wildflowers is one of the things he did with Rick Rubin. And he was a guy I knew from D-Generation. Did my first ever go into a major recording studio record, the first D-Generation album for EMI at Electric Lady. So Bianco had done that. We had picked him because he was super nice, but he also did Frank Black, Teenager of the Year.
I love that record.
And this cool AC/DC song, Big Gun, that we thought had a sleazy old school sound. But the guy had done everything from Teenage Fan Club to the first Danzig record, maybe the first two.
Right.
And then he had done a lot of Dylan during his time, and Lucinda loved working with him. So
what Dylan did he do?
He did the Together Through Life or something like that. It's called. I think it was a big record for Dylan about 5-6 years ago. He did the Christmas record, which was a lot of fun actually. And another one like
recent stuff.
Yeah, later stuff. But and later 2 or 3 Lucinda Williams records, and he was a sweet guy, and she brought him down to a gig that we did in L.A., and me and him reconnected. And here was this guy, when you're 25 and you first make a record with a producer and all, it was like, it made a big impression, and so it was cool to go full circle with him. We felt comfortable that we would try some stuff out in L.A., and we worked with him a bunch, and Tom Petty had passed away a week after we all hung out in L.A. I got the call. It was the same day as, Vegas. A friend of mine called me up, and that was that horrible day. The night before Marilyn Manson had got hit with a light rig, and I thought, wow, that's terrible. And the next day I got this call. Tom Petty had passed, and then the Vegas thing, and it was just really heavy. So that passed, so we went in the studio and worked a bit with Lucinda. Let's see how this thing fits and how it feels. And we used some of her players and some of mine, and we did a bunch of stuff, and it just felt really great. Her instincts for how a take would be, like, you record 2 or 3 takes, and if she was moving and grooving, she'd be like, that's the take. And I've always been a huge fan of hers as a writer and as a singer, and, one of my favorites, I'd first heard her on a Steve Earle record, I Feel All Right. The last song came on, and this voice just jumped up.
Right.
And I remember calling up Joey Ramone at the time. We'd talk every day back then, and he'd say, what are you listening to? And I said, I heard this woman, you probably don't know her, Lucinda Williams. And he said, I know her. I said, what, Joey? You know Lucinda Williams? And he said, yeah, I did a thing with her. I'm like, a thing? What did you do? He goes, it was a songwriter in the round. And they had done one at the Bottom Line in New York.
Oh, really?
And it turns out Lucinda would tell me. And I've done those, but not that one.
I did one of those at the Bottom Line.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Citizen Cope.
Citizen Cope,
Yeah.
Suzanne Vega,
yeah.
And the dude who wrote, In the Jungle or something like that.
Welcome to the Jungle?
No, in the Mighty Jungle.
We didn't introduce you, did we? Introduce you to the podcast? Ehud Lazen, the producer.
That's the first time I saw. The second time I saw it was in the round. It was you, Cope, Susan Vega. Cope was still an unknown.
Cope was killer.
Oh, he was amazing.
I was blown. Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Well.
But anyway, so, eventually Lucinda would tell me that Joey would send her music, and they were talking about maybe collaborating and writing, and of course he didn't last and live as long as we would have loved him to, and it was a sad thing.
You were good friends with him, huh?
Yeah, we became friends because it was the first tour that D-Generation went on that was a major tour. It was them, the Ramones, in theaters, and they were like, it was one of the reasons I got the courage to write songs. I'd be sitting there trying to learn Van Halen licks and studying with guitar lessons. Suddenly I heard the Ramones. I'm like, I got 3 chords. I'm going to call CBGBs. We got a gig. Let's write these songs.
Right.
And then seeing them, and they're very real and sweet people to us, especially Joey, even though, Joey and Johnny didn't talk that much in their later years in the van. They'd ride around in the van, and I'd speak to each other. But Johnny was very good to us, and had a real cool attitude in a different way. And each of them were great. And Joey and I just really connected. He was my neighbor, and
where did he live?
He lived on 9th Street and 3rd Avenue.
9th and 3rd.
Yeah. So we go to movies and we go to shows, and he just loved rock and roll, and he had a very sweet, warm heart, and he wasn't partying these days. He would just wake up real early and be drinking his, Frappuccino thing, and he'd leave me these long messages, which I still have on cassette, on my answering machine, about me, all excited at 9 in the morning, and I'd wake up around 1 and call him back. And,
what would he be excited about?
I got this new song, or I want to DJ at the Green Door party, or some band he's producing, or the new Ronnie Spector thing he's working on, or one of the groups he's real excited about, or helping out D-Generation. I want to get you on Howard Stern, or he just had a lot, and he was very supportive.
That's cool.
He lent me some money to help make the first solo record, and he loved one of the songs, Solitaire. But he was generous. He lent me $5,000, which
wow,
was a lot of money, and still is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I didn't have the big record deals anymore, and it was it was a tough time. He was just a guy that, like some people in music, their MO might be sex or drugs or money, and for him, he just loved rock and roll. Like he just he'd be in the van with his headphones on, and if he was around now, he'd have a show on Sirius, be like some super DJ.
Yeah.
But and
Peter
what a
Buck
wonderful
is like
voice.
that.
Yeah.
He just pure loves rock and roll, kind of like that too. Reminds me of that.
Yeah,
but you pay that. You pay that forward because you're very helpful to lots of musicians too, and people.
Well, you just try to, I don't know,
treat
people like how you'd want to be treated. Like I say, like people have been good to me, whatever. Like I met Joe Strummer. He didn't just blow me off. He stayed till 5 a.m. drinking tequila and answered every question and told every Clash story or whatever we wanted. And I was like, I don't know if I could do that every night. I thought maybe he was just doing it because he was in New York or something.
No,
and then I had friends that met him all over North America.
I met him in England. I smoked my first ever spliff with Joe Strummer.
Where was that?
I didn't even know what it was. I was at Real World when I first went over to Peter Gabriel's studio, and there was this thing called Recording Week, and Joe Strummer set up this thing called Strummerville in Peter Gabriel's studio, like in a drum room. It was like all this Recording Week thing, all these improvisational studios.
Wow.
And so he was kind of this outlier, even though he was the biggest legend amongst lots of legends, really. And I remember just hanging out with him, and like he would jam and play a tambourine and hand you his Telecaster and be like, let's jam. He just had that spirit. And I was sitting at a picnic table with him and a bunch of his crew, and they started rolling up a spliff, but I didn't know what that was because in Ohio, where I'm from, it was just weed.
Right.
Nobody put tobacco and hash, and I just never saw that before. And so when it came around, I was like, I'm going to smoke that. I don't know what it is. And I did. And then it came back around. I smoked it again, and it did nothing. I thought it was going to be like a big deal because it was Joe Strummer. But
maybe there was too much of the regular tobacco in there.
Well, spliff is mild.
Right.
It's no big deal. It's just tobacco with a little bit of hash. But
it's more my speed. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you don't smoke any of that stuff.
No.
I quit weed, too.
Yeah, I tried it, once or twice at a party. My friends know I'm not into drugs, so then if I'm wasted, like on New Year's Eve, like, Jesse, do it with us, do a hit. And I'll be like, I'm not going to be a stiff, I'll try it. But I'm always drunk, so whenever they talk me into it, I never get to feel what it's like. You
barely drink, really, though, too.
These days, a lot less.
Yeah.
But I didn't answer the question, so I'm going to swing back. We can go back into the booze and the health food. But the record started out, and we were at Dave Bianco's place and doing the stuff with him, and somewhere in the middle of the process, we were going back and forth from New York to L.A. based on Lucinda's touring schedule, my schedule, and David Bianco passed away just out of the blue, and I guess he had driven himself to the hospital and had a stroke, and
wow,
it really was shocking, Tom Petty, and I had a buddy I grew up with that worked for the Grateful Dead, Chris Cherokee, came to New York. We went out and saw the Bruce Springsteen play, hung out, and a couple months later he was gone, and then after that, I was thinking about all this stuff, and my dad was sick, and I was down in Florida writing songs in a hotel visiting him, and throughout the year as we were making the record, my dad would pass away and never played him. He was always very critical. We didn't grow up together, and
sorry for your loss.
Yeah, it's all right. And he'd be like, yeah, I can't wait to, let me hear something. I'm like, when it's done, I want you to hear it right. Well, we never got to that because.
But he was critical.
Yeah. Well, he'd be like, yeah, I think you should do this. I mean, he didn't wasn't like some music expert, but
right.
As a father, I don't know. He could be a ball breaker. It's always a funny thing. I mean,
yeah.
He liked the solo career. He was proud of that. I played with his hero Bruce Springsteen, but
right.
Degeneration, he didn't really understand. He'd be like, "What do you got that song Scorch? What kind of shoes you wearing? Those platforms?" I was like,
right.
Because you look like retard shoes, like Rain Man. What are those Mother Goose shoes? Orthopedic shoes. I'm like, Dad, they're brothel creepers. Your boy Elvis wore them.
Oh, really?
But, he'd be a little bit funny like that. He's like, get a job, work, cut your hair, go to the post office. I'm like,
right.
Dad, we sold out CBGBs 3 nights in a row.
Yeah.
He'd be like, I'll come see you when you play the Garden.
Wow.
And then we did play the Garden, but we were opening up for Kiss. But he did come to that.
Wow.
But my dad got ill, and he passed away. And a guitar player that had worked with me for a long time in Degeneration and in my solo stuff, Todd Youth, passed away. And
yeah, I remember
another
going
buddy
to
of mine, Tom
memorial.
Vaught, and it was just a lot. So I kept thinking about how much of this heavy stuff. I mean, we're getting older, but
yeah.
we also live in a faster lane. Not that my dad did, but like
right.
you see more of it. I think in people that live on the edge and live hard. But it just a lot happened, and it kept happening. So I was staying at a hotel in L.A., and I walked down the street, and I was thinking of different titles, and I saw this store. I think it was for children. And it said Sunset Kids on it, and I said, I like that. And we're going back and forth with making the record on the West Coast, East Coast, and I just wrote down in a little notebook that I still carry, the analog Palm Pilot thing. I use a real pen, and like you have, and it was in there, and I had a bunch of titles, and I explained to somebody why this title meant something to me, why it could be a contender for the record, and this person that was at the record company said, oh, that makes a lot of sense, and my manager liked it, and we were fighting over titles, and I said, it just feels natural for it, and we get, I wanted something like that, and that's kind of the story behind it, I guess.
I really like that
just
title.
Just the passing of those folks, and the record's dedicated to these people. It says the Sunset Kids, but yeah, I don't know, a title and anything like a band name, like after a while, kind of becomes its own energy.
Mm-hmm.
If someone said you're going to name your band the Police,
right.
you kind of would think like, what do you think of? You think of cops and badges, but now you think of like Sting. And, the car. Like I don't know, it becomes a whole different thing. The Beatles, I don't think of when I was a kid. I think of Bugs or the Beat. I guess they were being clever, and the Crickets and Buddy Holly. But names become its own kind of energy.
Yeah.
I think about these things when I'm in the van sometimes, like or names kind of explain what's going to happen or something, like the Clash, like it didn't work out, or the Dead Boys, like the singer Steve Bader's died, or I think there's some better ones like than that where you kind of manifest your destiny in the name, somehow.
Yeah, I was wondering about that with Sunset Kids, because I was like thinking, is this
it's my retirement record?
Yeah, I actually it crossed my mind. I was like, I wonder if this is his last record. God forbid.
I hope not. But
yeah, definitely not.
I'm retiring to become a comedian in the newly renovated Catskills. Beards and buns. We're gonna do.
They got comedy upstairs.
Yeah, I'm going
upstairs.
Try.
I'm gonna do it.
We're gonna do a few bits here. The Shecky 5000's coming out.
This one, Shane, where you got the line, "Everybody sends their love," and then at the end it says, "Don't deny it."
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, it's sometimes good to say one thing and say it over and over again.
Don't deny it. Yeah, because it just means like, I guess you're singing to what, Shane MacGowen?
Yeah, I got, I guess, into the Pogues, maybe a little bit later. I saw them in the early 80s at Danceteria. I didn't get it right away. I saw, like, one of their first gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years later, Joe Strummer, funny enough, produced a record called Hell's Ditch, and I really got into that. And then Shane left the band, and I went to see the Pogues at the Beacon Theater, and Joe Strummer was fronting the band, and it was pretty cool. But there's Joe Strummer. This is, like, this great thing, and people are yelling for Shane. And I'm like, wow, you got Joe Strummer here, and you're still yelling for this guy, so he's got to be pretty special.
Yeah.
I started to get more into their stuff. I always liked Fairy Tale in New York. I always thought it was the best Christmas song ever written, in the video with Matt Dillon and the Police Precinct. And there was this romance with them that was like, all right, they had this Celtic thing, but then they understood this kind of New York rock and roll, or this cinematic, like Sinatra, Once Upon a Time in America, like a lot of things I grew up loving, Scorsese films, and just slice-of-life characters that I always like to write about people that their humanity is so strong that they're willing to go down with the ship and, self-destruct. It's like that Daffy Duck thing in the cartoon Bugs Bunny. You can only do this trick once, boys and girls.
Right.
But like people,
romance
some of my
that.
favorite films when I was a little kid, because my parents were split up, and I went to movies all the time to like learn about like the world, and it was the 70s. Films like Dog Day Afternoon, where the Al Pacino character Sonny Wartzik, he could get out of the bank or get away, but he stays with the people in the bank and becomes their friends. Or in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Jack Nicholson's character R.P. McMurphy, like he could have left, but he has to stay and get this kid laid and put on a party on, and so there was always that feeling, the Indian being there, and so I started to notice a lot of this in the Pogues and their writing, and I got into it late, and
it's in your writing too.
Yeah.
You got a Jake LaMotta reference in one of your songs too.
That's Chemical Heart, yeah. But I guess somewhere around my first album, I would go on tour, and I was missing my friends home in New York, and they were out drinking every night, and at 7th Street at Niagara, and I felt like I'm missing out. So I put a shout out on the second record, one of the songs, hanging with the local talent, drinking like you're Shane MacGowen.
Right.
And next thing you know, that becomes a single in the UK, and we play a show, and he comes to the gig. My stage manager goes, "Look to your left, Shane is MacGowan's here." And next thing you know, he's on stage.
You manifested
and we,
Shane.
Yeah, we sang together. And it was Oliver's Army by Elvis Costello. Or rah, 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 rah. But a few years later, which was like about a couple months before we finished this record, in the middle of it, I got invited to go sing at his 60th birthday. And a lot of people, like it says in the song, didn't think this guy would make it to 60. And he has his 60th birthday in Dublin, and I'm asked to sing, a couple songs. And who's on the bill? It's like Sinead O'Connor and Nick Cave and Bono and Johnny Depp and Glenn Haznard and Bobby Gillespie, and it was just unbelievable. Court O'Riordan was on bass from the Pogues, and Shane is there singing too, but he's in a wheelchair, still drinking, and he's in a wheelchair, and I flew from Texas. I had played a special tribute to Alejandro Escovedo with Craig Finn and some other folks, and we went from Austin, and I stopped in New York and went, and was up all night. I was up since the Austin gig, and I got to Dublin, and I rehearsed real fast, and I'm there with all these people, and I'm like the only like real New York guy there, and it's all these people that kind of know each other in this really nice place, and the president of Ireland, and I talked to Shane a bit, and he was like, he knew the song I was going to sing, and he's holding my hand with his wine, and there's Johnny Depp, and he's like, he's reciting the lyrics to me of that song, and meanwhile he looks pretty pale, like, and scary, but the night ended, I did my song, and we're all on stage, and the president of Ireland comes out. Shane's in the wheelchair, and I'm standing next to Nick Cave. I'm standing next to Johnny Depp and Bono and the guy from the Frames, and suddenly the kid from the Libertines, they try to give him this big award, and it's so heavy, and he, of course, he can't hold it. So this military guy that's with the president turns around and hands it to me, and I'm holding it on the stage in Dublin, and I turned to Bono, he's right there, and I said, "You got to take this. You got to hold it." I said, "I'm a Jew from New York," and he just goes, "No, you." He just wouldn't touch it, so I had to carry this thing off. So I felt like, it was so an honor to be there. And then it was an after party, and Shane was drinking, and we
so
sang.
Funny,
but I felt like Forrest Gump or something. I'm with these people. The photos came out in the magazines, and I'm with all these people that are like, these heavies. So I went home and wrote the song about him, and then about kind of my experience there, and Lucinda sings on it. So
somebody asked, I put out a tweet or Instagram about getting some questions, fan questions, and at I Am Human wants to know about the after party of Shane MacGowan's 60th.
Well, I had been drinking. Sometimes alcohol can be a funny thing. I was in Dublin, so I was going to drink Guinness because it tastes better over there.
Yeah.
And I had some jitters. I was nervous because I was out of my element. And also, once you start with alcohol, and this is going to sound very alcoholic, but I wanted to keep going energy-wise because I hadn't slept. So I had a few. And plus, the energy and the nerves. I remember I once sang with Bruce Springsteen, not to drop all these names here, at Giant Stadium. And when I got off stage, it was 60,000 people. My heart was racing so much that I did a few shots of bourbon, which I never drink, and I was sober as hell. Like it was like the energy was so high, or if you get off a roller coaster. But But, so we were drinking and I got up and I think I sang a Bob Dylan song with the band. There was a house band there that was pretty cool. Different people were getting up, and it was this, good time. Joe Strummer's wife was there, and some other folks I know from London were there, and Clem Burke, who I'd played with, and Glenn Matlock and his wife, and it was just some great folks and a lot of fans, even though it was in this fancy, place in Dublin, this Lincoln Center kind of place.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're doing that, I'm trying to find a way to make sure I'm going to stay awake and enjoy this, but I knew I couldn't stay all night. And then I noticed in the big crowd, leaning against the wall in his chair, was Shane, and he was there, and nobody was talking to him or whatever. And now this is after the whole show he sat through. He sang. This is the after party. But he was so hardcore. He was up in the dark corner against the wall, and there was some nurse type of woman with him, watching him. And I just went over to him, and I just started talking to him, and I held his hand, and I said, I hope you can, really hang in there. I was just saying all these loving, kind of this moment, I hope you're going to be okay and whatever. And he was just nodding his head. You could tell the night was getting long on him, but he was still coherent. And it just made an impression on me, too, that he was at the after party hanging by himself in the corner. And, it was fun.
What was the impression?
That, this guy, this is what he has. This is his life. He's not just going to go home and be, come in for the, fancy moment and get the award. He's there, checking it out. He's a lifer. He's committed to this lifestyle. It's in him, music and being out and the people around him. Just seemed like, he's a brave guy. He was born on Christmas, So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I don't know if he's a carpenter or anything.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, born on Christmas.
Yeah,
that's why he wrote the best Christmas song.
Now, though, this lifestyle, I feel like everybody's getting healthier and,
Well, I think he stood up now and he's actually walking. But
yeah.
But there are different things. I once said to Bob Gruen, in the 70s, because I noticed on the D-Generation tour bus, as much as we like to drink and stuff, we loved our bottled water and the waters, and we always had to be hydrated. And I said, what did people do? Did they drink water out of the, the sink there? He goes, no, you woke up, you drank more drinks. Or, I was like, did they drink soda? He goes, you just drank,
Ugh, I can't.
But, I do think as much as there's so many things in this world that are changed and the world's gentrified and the technology and the telephone zombies like myself walking down the street and not in the disconnection and disposableness of the modern thing and what the technology has done that's been great and things that it's hurt. But I think that there is a consciousness of health. I've been vegetarian since I'm 15, and it was really hard going on the road. You want a vegetarian meal, they'd give you a Domino's pizza. There's no meat, So meanwhile, you'd eat cheese and carbs and bread. But I think, going around to different places, you can go into some weird Walmart or supermarket in the middle of America and find your veggie burger and your almond milk and bottled water. Maybe it's a scam or whatever, but there's more awareness to these things and they're more accessible. And the same thing with working out. There's, all kinds of coffee places and banks all over New York, but there's also gyms everywhere. And me and you like to work out outside, but some days I like the gym, and there is that other thing. And I think some people are getting healthy. The one thing we got out of hardcore, coming in when hardcore punk, we missed the whole 70s thing. It seemed exciting, but it also seemed, I never liked going to a doctor and getting a needle, or it seemed like it just didn't look sexy to me. Some of these junky guys, all messed up. It didn't have that romance. And with hardcore, it was all right, we're going to be really crazy, have something to say, and in your face and aggressive and loud, and we're going to be straight, so deal with this.
Yeah.
And people like Jello Biafra would talk about that. And, we noticed, all the people that had a message, the yippies, the yippies before the hippies, some of the punk rockers, a lot of people burnt out with the drugs. Joe Strummer singing all these anti-drug songs, and meanwhile, the drummers, they got a heroin problem, and maybe Joe's even you'd want to preach one thing, but it's also, it's always the demise of a lot of great artists because of pain and because of, I also learned too, you go on the road every day and you're out there, and then they just give you free stuff, I got a free bottle every night, before you know it, and it's also being away and finding ways to cope.
Just the hotel,
yeah.
Even though they can be nice, it's just there's something about that environment that, can make you extra lonely, I guess.
I have a song on the record. It's probably my favorite on the new record called Room 13, and it's I think it's going to be the first single, actually. We're doing a video for it this week. But the idea behind it, I think the chorus is I spent some time in a hotel room thinking about love.
Yeah.
And, hotel rooms, we don't always think of love. We think of other things, in there. But just that time that you have when you're far away and out of your comfort zone, and you get to reflect and meditate on what matters and what means something to you. And I get that, riding in a train or a car or a plane, looking out the window. Sometimes I cry on airplanes watching movies because you're up there all alone, and the cheesiest movie will end, and I'll find myself bawling, because you're just in this vulnerable place. And I think travel does that to you. So I could see why, people would want to medicate. But with hardcore, there was just a lot of things we learned early on, like the PMA thing that the Bad Brains were talking about from that Think and Go Rich book of positive mental attitude. And just find ways to make things happen, like that DIY thing, which is such a cliche, but like that, there's ways. I had a friend of mine, Victor Murgatroyd, who would wake up every day and we'd have no money and we didn't know what to do. He goes, there's ways. And, I still think of him and I hear his voice saying, there's ways. And we would sell our CDs, or we'd go up to the record companies and go, can we get some records? And we go sell them on St. Mark's and find ways to eat, or we'd start throwing parties and DJing at this thing called the Green Door to, not have to work a day job. You do all these different things. When D-Generation first started to come around, before we really wanted a record deal, but first we wanted a bar deal, and that was meant that we could drink free in any bar in our neighborhood, down there on the east side. And it seems ridiculous now, but especially for me, it's kind of funny, but it was like a big thing like that. He knew our band and we could come in and have some free drinks and then then get a record deal.
Now you got bar deals all over this place.
Yeah, then I don't want it. But the thing is, the keeping your mind and your body, and there's just something about feeling good. I mean, I like to have fun, but I think...
Do you pray and meditate or anything like that?
I've meditated. I haven't prayed. I've done meditation and yoga. There's a couple spots I've gone to, and I get a lot out of that, especially in the days of the technology, the phones and the computers. Though? No, I mean, I've said the prayers that they say at the end of at Integral Yoga, but just think about love and life and the universe and that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not religious. I've never been, but I believe in an energy and in people and a rhythm, and I feel that we're all really connected, even though there's a lot of terrible people out there. I think that there's a real worldwide global bond, and I think you also learn that playing music, that how small the planet is, and when you go around to places that you'd only read about or hear about. I went to Moscow, and it seemed felt very connected in some ways, as much as it was completely different. You could see the humanity, and I think rock music, as corny as it sounds, I always say this, kind of connects us together. It's a thing that brings people together from the heartbeat and stuff. We're the doctors without borders. We just go around.
Well, one of the things I think that's important about you is you're keeping that sort of CBGB's New York City energy alive.
Well, I'm a fan of that stuff. I always, like.
Without you, the Bowery Electric, this place, Coney Island Baby.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We used to do these parties at a guy named Giorgio Gomelsky's loft. This guy who was this old Russian, European
guy. Is that
guy.
the Green Door parties?
Yeah, and he had a green door.
My friend Molly asked about that. She wanted to ask you about that. She said wants to know about the Green Door parties, Coney Island High, and how your musical empire was built of that momentum at Molly 3 King. That's her question.
Okay. I
got
know
some
Molly.
fan
Hello,
questions
Molly
for
out
you.
there. Yeah, how you doing, Molly? Good to hear
Shout
from
out
you.
to Molly.
No, I think I know she is. No, but I mean...
How you doing? Where am I over here?
After Heart Attack broke up, I had this band Hope that never made records, and it was a tough time. I was like in my later teens, and my mom just passed away, and I had to move back to Queens. I used to live, I'd crash in our rehearsal studio on Avenue B. I think it was 162 Avenue B. Shared a studio with the False Prophets and my band Heart Attack, and then it was Hope. And we'd live there. I worked at a health food spot, and I'd live on out-of-date yogurts and tofu, and we'd, do the push-ups and jump around with the guitars and play, and then we'd, book gigs, and eventually that place would become the Lakeside Lounge and stuff, and now Dream Baby. And I go in there, and I'm like, that was where my bed was. But I wanted to find a way to stay out of a heavy job, and I wasn't going to school that much, and I had to kind of raise my sister and go back to Queens, and so I got a van, and I just figured I could carry my gear and go on tour, but then I could move other people, and so I made flyers, and I went all over the city, and I'd drive bands from the Music Building to CBGB's, or I'd move kids going to NYU, or furniture, and Castro converters, and, futons, and we worked for everybody from, like, the Swans to Barbra Streisand, and so it was a good gig, and then it's still like lifting a lot of shit. It's giving me a hernia, but I was able to
Stiff
hire.
don't lift.
Yeah, Johnny Stiff does it now.
Johnny
And I had like
Stiff
9
don't lift.
vans, and they all died violent deaths. In fact, one I rolled a 360. I broke my nose.
Oh, really?
On coming back from Pittsburgh at a
Wow.
gig. We had a trailer. We
crazy.
switched drivers in motion. Don't do that at home, kids. Don't do that away from
Wow.
home. But one New Year's Eve, we just didn't want to be, me and my friends, in a club like listening to all the music that we hated, the mainstream rock or whatever club stuff. I don't want to list any bands this time, but it was just, we didn't want to be stuck on New Year's Eve at one of these big clubs. So we decided we want to throw a party and play records that we loved and try to get people to dress up real funky and wild and dance. And we brought in all the booze in my van from a beer distributor in Brooklyn, and the door was green, so we called it the Green Door Party, and we said, save New Year's Eve, and that's what we called the party. And our girlfriends sold the beer, and we put on the records Howie Pyro, my friend, my roommate, who'd eventually become my bass player in D-Generation, and my friend Richard Backus, and my ex-girlfriend friend Holly Ramos, and my friend Victor Murgatroyd. We all threw this together, and it was packed, and people had a ball. It went till 6 in the morning, and we did this in this guy's loft. It looked like the scene in Midnight Cowboy, like that loft party scene. Giorgio took very little money. He let people rehearse in his place on different floors, and he also had an S&M club there that he didn't run, but he took a little percentage out of it called paddles. And I remember I'd load bands in with my van. They'd be rehearsing. I'd be loading bands in the middle of a Saturday night coming back from a gig, and people would be getting spanked and paddled. And so I knew that this place was available for parties. So we did the Green Door there, and it went so well that someone said, do this again.
Right.
And then we did it again, and more people started coming out, and like it got really fun. And we'd listen to records and play records from like the Stooges to, Funkadelic to Sly Stone to the Cramps to, Escarita. And the idea was just about dancing, that people had to really dance. And so after that ended, it got so hot there with no air conditioning, we started doing it at different clubs. And we started doing it at a place on St. Mark's. It was only open one night a week called Boy Bar. But they let us come in, and we started doing it there. And
Was
eventually,
it a gay place?
It was a gay place that Dean Johnson, a lot of cool people. Paul McGregor had owned the building. He was the guy that invented the shag haircut for Jane Fonda and the implosion or explosion haircut that Jimi Hendrix had. And supposedly Shampoo, the movie, was based on him, like the character in it. And Joey Ramone said he went there. He told me, I went there to get my hair cut once when I was a kid. Apparently, Paul McGregor, the landlord, when he was cutting hair, would come out every Saturday, and people would wait online. He'd come out dressed as a cowboy or dressed as a sailor, and like an Indian, and then he'd bring him in, and you get your hair cut.
Did he give Joey Ramone his famous haircut?
I don't know about that haircut. I think Joey went there to get before he told me, the Jimi Hendrix haircut.
Oh,
To look like that. It's like a fro. I don't know. But so this space was magical, and I had
weird
seen.
to think of Joey Ramone as Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. Everybody comes from somewhere, but I know. But so we went in there, and we did this club all the time, and then eventually these people invested, and I had this idea that instead of just doing Green Door, that we'd maybe do a club that would be every night, 7 nights of this. And I hired all my friends. I didn't know what I was doing. And I named it Coney Island High because Coney Island, going out there and riding the Cyclone and doing all that and jumping off the pier and everything was something me and my friends loved doing. It was one of my favorite places in the world, still is. And I thought Coney Island High. And people were like, well, it's not in Brooklyn. The idea was that it would also be like a high school, like the Ramones, Rock and Roll High School.
Oh, right.
And Coney Island High. And then kind of like Max's Kansas City. Well, Max's Kansas City wasn't in Kansas City.
Right.
So let's just do this thing, Coney Island High. And it would look like a school, and it was on St. Mark's. And so I had a record deal with D-Generation at this point. We were
Didn't
touring.
it have a clown on it or something, too?
Like that steeplechase clown. That wasn't our thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But, I was touring all over the place, and I hired all my friends. I didn't know how to run a place. I hired some people I didn't know, and everybody gave the place the liquor away, and everybody had a ton of fun. But we weren't running it like a real business. And I'm on tour with Kiss and Social Distortion, and we got all this record company money, which I had put some of that money in to do this club. And Giuliani was the mayor, and they started coming after us for dancing. And one of the biggest nights was the Green Door Party. And, when people come out and go see a show, they have a drink or two, but they don't spend a lot of money. But if it's a dance party and people are hooking up and they're having fun, so we had to stop dancing. We were telling people, you can't dance. And we had signs up, and they said, what is this, Footloose? Is this real? And I said, no, it's cabaret laws. So we tried to get a cabaret license, but it turned out St. Mark's Place, that between 2nd and 3rd, was zoned residential.
Wow.
And you looked out the door, they were selling condoms and T-shirts and crack and, Japanese food and records. And so we couldn't get a cabaret license because it was residential. When was it zoned? 100 years ago when it was it was a real catch-22. So we lost the place and learned a lot of lessons, but it was a fun 5 years, the nights that we had there, and a lot of cool bands. Ramones played there, and Iggy Pop, and Beastie Boys, and tons of young bands and hardcore shows, and so we learned a lot about it. I wanted a place, as we said, for the kids, by the kids, and I guess if we were smarter, we might have had more money to fight the lawyers and to fight with lawyers and stand up a little bit more. But the city, as much as Giuliani would become sort of a hero for a moment during 9/11 and after, it was really felt like a dictatorship, fascist kind of state when he was the mayor. I went to jail twice, and I don't have a police record, but one time after playing the Garden with Kiss for an open container in front of the Garden, I just played, and another time for putting up a poster with Scotch tape. I did 2 days in the Tombs.
Crazy.
So it was a cuckoo time. So after that, I just wanted to have a little place with my friends, a little bar, like a Frank Sinatra kind of fantasy.
Yeah.
So me and Johnny T and a couple other folks opened up Niagara, just a place where we could play records and hang out. And I think when musicians aren't touring or playing, or you want to listen to music and talk about music and drink and talk about music and talk to girls and talk about music, and so it was that kind of thing. We just did it real casual, and we would let every band, wherever I go on the road, I always want to find that bar where the good music is, or it used to be a jukebox, or where there's a cool DJ. Where do we go? You ask people, where's a record store? And so we just made it a place. If you were in a band, you came here, you come, and you and your crew come, and you'll drink free and hang out, and that became the thing. And Joe Strummer came there a couple times, and so when he passed away, they had to make a video for him, and he was gone. And Josh Chuse, my friend, who I've known for many years, did all my album covers, was close with Joe and made a lot of his artwork and album covers, was in charge of doing a video for Redemption Song, the Bob Marley song. And how you going to make a video with this guy that's not in it? Well, in our neighborhood for years, in the Latino community, they do a rattle can style memorial on the wall for a lot of people, a lot of different artists down here in the Lower East Side. So he had an idea of having these two artists that knew Joe, Dr. Revolt, and another guy named Zephyr. Dr. Revolt had been married to my sister, actually, and to go in and do this mural of Joe on the wall, and as it's being painted, film the video and have people coming up and paying tribute to Joe with candles and flowers, because when Joe had passed, people wanted to mourn him in New York. So suddenly outside of Niagara Bar, because he'd been there 3 or 4 times, they put flowers and candles out. So maybe that got the wheels rolling. So we were going to do this, and Josh was going to direct it, and a lot of good folks like Steve Buscemi and Jim Jarmusch, friends of Joe, Rancid, and folks like that came by, and we did this video, and the mural was up, and it was really a sweet, wonderful video for such a good song. Joe really sings the hell out of Redemption Song on the Streetcore record. Maybe it's the last song. And then said, let's just leave this up here.
Still up.
And we didn't think of that like as a thing, like, let's leave it up. We were joking.
Yeah.
It doesn't even look like Joe. Somebody said, it looks like Morrissey, but like he would like it. He had a sense of humor,
Yeah.
It says the future's unwritten, know your rights.
Future's unwritten.
And then it just stayed up there, and, tons of people come by and just take pictures in front of it, and became kind of part of a thing by the park there. But, so that made what we were doing, our little rock and roll dream, or having this place of keeping music going, like having that out there was like, just an accidental, gift, I guess. So, that Josh and Joe and everybody, Dr. Revolt, brought us. But it's been in a few videos. I think I even had it in a video. So it's just a thing to have these kind of spots, kind of.
The Bowery Electric, was that meant to be kind of a CBGB's type of vibe?
It's on Joey Ramone Place, yeah.
Yeah.
It was an old electric supply store. So I was supposed to do that place. Me and Johnny were going to do that with Joey and his brother. Joey was really into doing a club, but he was into food. He wasn't drinking, so he wanted to call it When Eggs Collide. And he wanted to have some food there. I swear to God.
When Eggs Collide?
Yeah. So, and he wanted to have, like, coffee. And, it was what he was into. The guy was writing songs about Maria Bartiromo and, people talking about.
What a quirky guy, huh?
Yeah, but so much heart, so much soul.
And,
and again, like Joe, they made his last record while he was gone. Like, they had to beef up demos and use vocal performances. The last Joe record, was made after he had passed, I'm pretty sure. And definitely the Joey one, some of the vocal takes and things were that Daniel Ray had to put together through, things that were maybe, not, they were the demos or whatever. So there's a song on that Joey Ramone record, the "Don't Worry About Me," called "Searching for Something." That really, it's very conversational and very much like him going upstate and getting into some meditation and hanging out with this girl who was really into going to India, and it's just this kind of
he got into that, Joey
song.
Ramone.
Yeah, he liked getting out of the city and it's just it's a cool one to check out.
Was he into yoga and stuff like that?
I don't think so much. Maybe in a simple way. I mean, physically, the guy I don't think was born with the best body. He had a lot of ailments and a lot of things. And
right.
Was unhealthy and was in and out of hospitals throughout the Ramones. It's amazing they toured that much. I think Johnny just pushed that ship military style going.
Right.
You know. And watching that in action, you know, we learned so much from them on touring and stuff. Just how they ran it. You know, so just a lot of. It's funny, you know, "Death is a Star," like that song. Like, you know, now they're bigger than ever. You know, everything, but they never fully got to see that when they were alive. And just like an old couple,
they played the clubs still, basically.
Yeah. They make their money on the road. Now
and
you go
toured in a van, really, didn't they? Or
Yeah.
did they have a bus ever?
They did the bus, but the van was more economical.
Yeah.
They laughed at us. We were in a bus opening for them in a van. It was kind of embarrassing with Degeneration, but you know, we had the record company money, but they were in a van and they had it down. They had that was one of the things we noticed, and we went back to the van.
Right.
And we'd pull up with the tour bus. We'd be like, wow. But you seem to feel better as a band when you're in a van together. You have more jokes. It keeps you guys in the good days in the van. You know, we'd listen to cassette tapes of the Jerky Boys, and like that you come up with a different language. It's like if you ever go to a camp or you go hang out with your friends for long enough, you speak a certain way over the summer. When you go on tour, you kind of get these inside jokes that no one else understands, and you're in this world. I always look at it as like, even now, putting together a pirate ship of people and going around the world. You get to pick the sound guy you want, or, you know, I have these people like Harry who's worked with me, or Mark, my sound guy. Like, you put this world together and go from town to town, you know, and it feels really nice. And in the bus, people can isolate and go in their bunks and go away. And,
that's
you know,
true.
You know, be a weird guy in the back lounge, or, you know, whatever.
I've been the weird guy in the back lounge.
Yeah, I guess.
So let me give you another fan question from @MarieMakesArt, who wants to know if you struggle with people pleasing and what frees you to give yourself permission and motivation to make art when so many other identities would be easier to sustain in the eyes of others who need you to stay small.
Yeah, well,
It's a
there's
deep
always
question.
there's always people that
Really?
There's always haters. There's always jealous people. There's people that are competitive, and you know, it's funny. Like when the Strokes were doing so well, I noticed that like a lot of my musician friends in New York, like, oh, they're not that good, or they sound like this on television, or they.
Yeah.
And I felt like they were great. And I was so happy for them, and I also knew what it was like to kind of have a little success, not what they had, but with our band Degeneration, where all these other bands, instead of being like, wow, you know, wishing us well, and that we'd be doing something that could maybe help the neighborhood by opening other doors for other bands, just were haters, you know, and jealous. And with the Strokes, I mean, they brought rock music back, them, White Stripes, whatever, Interpol, and brought New York back, Yeahs and the Strokes and those bands, like rock music in New York. So I was so into them.
Me too.
And I backed it.
That first album in particular.
Yeah, I like the second one
is
a lot.
incredible. Yeah,
the second one's really cool too.
Second one's pretty good too.
And I just thought this is great for rock music in America and in the world and for New York. And for me, I always kind of end up doing what I want. There's always a lot of people that would be like, well, why is he doing this, you know, folk music? Or I've had friends that call me Jesse Cougar Malencamp, or, you know, like they want me to stay in hardcore or degen. And, you know, when I was in the hardcore scene, like people, you got to be so hard and you got to be this.
Not anymore, though.
No, but this was back in the day.
Then.
And then I was like, well, I don't want to be like some, you know, hard skinhead. That's not what I'm about.
Right.
And the people, you know, I want to use my brains and I, you know, want to use my body. But, you know, like there are people that was always backlash. Your band is this, these guys are soft. And so, you know, you had that at school, people that knocked you and judged you. I grew up in a place where, you know, I was into Kiss, and some people that like Zeppelin and Sabbath and even other things, the Grateful Dead, were like, Kiss sucks, and the older kids could see through it, and the Kiss sucks, and you get beat up a little bit. But when I got into punk in Queens in those days, it wasn't fashionable like now, where people's moms have mohawks and colored hair and tattoos and nose rings. It was like, you're into punk, you faggot, you killed your girlfriend, you're a junkie, homosexual, or all three, or whatever. And so it would be real. Everyone beat you up. It wasn't just like the kids that liked Zeppelin, fucking Kiss. It was like the disco boys hated you. Everyone. So you kind of had to find a way to get thick skin and be into what you liked. And I'd go into the city, and I'd come back from the city, and the kids in the city, in the Queens, would go like, "Where are you coming from? The Village?" And I knew what they were trying to say, but it was like, it was like this ignorant thing. So coming up, and after Degeneration, I kind of wanted to, even that, it was like bands were in grunge, and we didn't fit into what exactly was supposed to be. We had to deal with a lot of adverse situations. So going solo, I had people like my first couple albums like, why isn't he, playing in Degeneration? Why aren't doing this? And in the end, if you're not happy and you don't like what you're doing and you're not, it really connected to it, I think it shows through. And to please people, you can't, please everybody. I try to be positive, and the people around me in the world, like I go out, I don't, I might be moody at times, but if I see people that, I want to be present, I want to be in the moment, I want to talk to my fans or friends or strangers or somebody asking a question in the street or whatever. Like, I think that's part of the human thing, but sometimes you have to protect yourself, and I think you need to, especially being an artist, you need a place to go and refuel, and not just be like some guy walking in your neighborhood that people know. Like, you have to kind of be an outsider, an observer, and I like going in strange places where no one knows me and kind of watching the movie as opposed to partaking and being one of the guest stars or whatever. And so I think I think it's great to keep real positive stuff with people and be open, but also to save something for yourself, if this answers the question. And I think, a lot of my friends, people I know since I'm a kid, I grew up in this city, and a lot of New York people, my friends that are still here or around, that those are the valuable friendships. And I make new friends. Me and you are relatively a new friendship that means a lot to me. But I don't let everybody fully in. Like, it's a certain layers where I guess it takes me a while.
Well, there's a line on your new album about people think you're cold or something like that.
Oh, that's in the My Little Life, or just antisocial.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know what to say sometimes. But,
is that true though?
But that's not. That's still from the perspective. That's me writing through those people I was talking about before. That
that's not really
just that are shot. Yeah, I'm writing that song through maybe even my sister or my cousin or certain people, a couple friends of mine that are just very different.
Yeah.
That ain't that. But no, I like people. I like going out. I like socializing. I'm an Aquarian, and I'll have a few drinks and jump around, but I think you have to also know where, sometimes quiet time and certain people that sometimes simple things away from the whole big party are just as important as being in the crowd and being on stage.
Yeah,
it's kind of a balance.
But Jesse, a couple of years back, Degeneration got back together. You did a couple of shows, didn't you? Like at Irving Plaza. Was that the original lineup?
Degeneration got back together. Yeah, we did a record called Nothing Is Anywhere, and it was the original lineup, which was the reason I think the main lineup. I mean, there was some different people at times, but that was the lineup that did the main records, that got the first record deal, that did the first few albums, and that was the real band.
Why'd you do that?
Because everybody was still alive. I think we got asked to do, the reason we wanted to do it was also because we got asked to do these festivals in Spain, and they kept asking every year, and then one year everybody just said yes, and I thought it would be fun to go back with the guys and it's a family and have some fun and
make a new record maybe.
Jump in a new in that character for a bit. But it's tough because, things change and everybody's a little different, and some things don't get better, some things get worse. But we had some fun the first round. I think we did it twice where we kind of came back from the dead and did Irving Plaza, and we did a little bit of a tour. We went to Europe, but there was the Spanish people. They were just they remembered us from like a tour we did with Green Day, and they kept making these great offers. And then finally, once we figured if we're going to do a rehearsal for one, we might as well play
I think
London.
I know those Spanish people.
Yeah. We need more of those kind of David, love the art, Ascana Rock and all that stuff.
Shout out to David,
Yeah, but it was fun to, take the shirt off again at 40 years old and jump around.
You can pull it off.
Hit yourself with the microphone and roll on the floor and, some kind of scream session, therapeutic white wool rubber, took his foundation.
Do you think it'll ever get back together, or is that?
I don't know. I think that we did it twice. As you get, I don't know. That stuff is a certain energy and an age. I mean, sometimes things with that too, like you love the people, and and it's nice to try to keep the friendships going. And if you're playing music with them, it's harder to really love these guys that are in your life so much. But I'm proud of the record we did, and some of those gigs were really, really great.
Yeah.
And there's a thing that band has there. It's like, because we can fight so hard, we can we can love each other, hate each other. It's like a 5-headed marriage. There's a lot of different weird friendships that have been broken and mended, and there's two brothers, and it just has whatever people thought of the music. There's like a real energy as a band. We were like a thing as far as forget the songs even or whatever. Just as a group of a thing.
Are you gonna write a book? You should write a book, I think.
I don't know. It's either that or a podcast.
Yeah.
So many people are doing the podcast.
Right.
Joking. This is your first one birthing this.
Thanks for birthing it, man.
No, I want
Appreciate
to thank you. I mean, knowing you as we've gotten closer, making the EP we did, Meet Me at the End of the World, the EP, and other songs, Fox News, and I guess it started. I think I came to your house in Red Hook, and I wanted to do a song for my friend who's been ill. We started the Positive Panther charity for Natalie Baverstock, and I had a song I wrote because I was doing these shows for her, so I figured I wanted to write this song for her, and then we wanted to record it, and I said, I want to take this folky little song that we have and mess it up and give it some art and some color, and not just be all horsey about it with just an acoustic. And so I came to the doctor here, and we went out, and he was next to this chop shop or this junkyard or this mechanic place.
I lived for a million
and he went in
years.
there, and his paintings and all this stuff,
country.
and there's no isolation booths. There's just a couch and a few mics, and me and Derek and a piano that's tuned to like the Elliott Smith tuning, and
432.
and we just started to go, and I was like, wow, there's something here. This is great. So we put that out for our friend as a single, and did a video for it. I think
that was beautiful.
London Rain is the name of the song.
London Rain, yeah.
And
Tall Black Horses.
And then I came and did a song, Tall Black Horses, that I couldn't get right for so
love.
long. Yeah, that's a real special one. And then started working on the EP, and we were going out to the late great Water Music in Hoboken, where there was a great board there. And then working in the city, but just getting to know you and seeing your energy, and then we had a friend, mutual friend, came by, Liz, and suddenly boxing gets introduced into the mix.
That's right. I
and
got
planking,
into boxing through you.
And Joseph's planking for like 4 or 5 minutes in the middle of the control room, and then
I was going through some rough times, and so you landed in my life in a great way. I mean, for real.
I feel the same way.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was like,
you'd come in and you just add these things, and even with the new record, it was like we were working on some stuff, and then we started working with Lucinda, and you just
snuck on in there a little bit.
Came in a lot and added a lot of things, and some of them I've turned them up even more in the later mixes because they were just that extra ingredient that you bring. That we can have a song, but that thing that makes it stick out, that little thing you'll notice. I don't know. It's really the art that I think you can add, and you have a good way of just walking in and using anything that's available, whether it's your phone to an instrument or whatever, a piano. And that was really fun. And then just seeing you ride the elevator with this guy down, and next thing you know, he's taking a picture that could be your album cover, or I walk across the street and we got the next photo, or
the flower pot.
Yeah, the flower
That's
pot.
That's a pretty
image.
good photo.
Yeah,
I posted that today. Got a lot of likes.
That was at the end of the end of the late night session. So I think the energy that you bring it to a room, and then what you do, going from all these great projects, doing your solo stuff, but then something, I'm disappearing, I'm going to go do Arthur Buck, and next thing you know, the record's out and there's a tour, and I just like the way you can you seem fearless and move fast, and that energy, even seeing you paint in the back of this basement. The other day I saw Joe, and I saw you, and I was like, hey, he's like, I want to paint down this basement next to the beer. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And the next night, 3 paintings end up on my phone that are just amazing. So,
thanks, man. And one's right behind you right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That got done here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but this has been a lot, and going to see you play in different settings, with Russell on drums, or you alone.
Oh man, Russell playing with him was great.
But just all the different ways that you pull it off. That's like a thing. Like when your stuff is that strong that you can do it in different ways. Like Neil Young, he could do a country thing, or he does Crazy Horse. I think you have that thing where your songs and your personality stand out. Because I think the first time I saw you were looping stuff. I don't know how you were doing. You were hitting
jam mans.
You was hitting pedals, and things were playing at the same time. And I was like, wow, this guy's doing all this.
Well, we should tour together in the fall. I was talking to Keith my manager about it today, going like, yeah, we should do some shows with Jesse because
No, your record's coming out.
coming out in October. So after
And is
yours,
that like the
but
first record for a long time?
first solo for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? When was the last solo for you?
It's about 5 years ago.
I think
Woo!
for me too, man.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Well,
But
you had
I
a
feel
song
like
called
we're-
Diamond Ring.
Oh, huh?
And didn't you have a song called Diamond
Yeah, I
Ring?
did.
What
Yeah,
record was
Lonely
that?
Astronauts.
Lonely Astronauts was a good record.
Yeah. Let's just be. Yeah,
Chicago was on.
but
And you did some other endeavors besides just playing, where you opened up a gallery, right?
yeah,
It was called the
Museum of Modern Arthur.
Yeah.
I got that from Spencer Drake. Shout out to Spencer Drake. But
He'll be
yeah, we
sending me
should
an
we
email.
should do some show. Yeah, he sent you
Send
some
me a
emails.
couple emails.
Yeah.
Just shout them out. Did some good album covers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. And
yeah.
I'm doing my record celebration show at Webster Hall. I know
Oh,
you're
I'm
going to
gonna be
play
on
on
that.
that too. It's
Yeah.
September 14th. And I went over there to check it out. I was here and I ran down late to see some of Patti Smith and see the place. And we
Michael
grew,
Stipe, didn't he open up that one?
yeah, I missed all that. I would have liked to seen him, but you know, they kept it pretty. They still got that Art Deco balcony and the ceiling, and the stage is still facing in the right direction. So I was thinking about all the stuff. You know, we grew up in that room, and you know, it was the Ritz when we were kids, and I played there with the Misfits opening for them, and the Dead Kennedys.
Yeah,
And
I can't imagine what it's like
you
growing
know.
up in New York like that and just being in on the scene for your whole life like that.
It's
wild.
weird. I mean, you know, coming from Queens, you took the train in, and you know,
Yeah.
coming down to the city, but it was close. But it seemed some people never left Queens. You know,
Right.
it's like it was like going to another country. But I was
That's-
like, get on this train and get down there, and there's shows, and you can record stores, and you can sneak
Yeah.
into these clubs. But the Ritz and then Webster Hall, it's like a classic room. It's good when these venues don't go away and things, you know, where people can play music still exist. That's the one thing.
Well,
that
I mean,
we
yeah,
want.
it's hard to put it the right way, but I feel like you definitely, like I wrote this song called Mayor of the Lower East Side, and everybody assumed it was about you. And I think it kind of was about you. It definitely was inspired by you
really?
because, you know, and then there's a line like, you're the mayor of the Lower East Side. I heard them saying, you keep New York City alive. Like, and not to like embarrass you with too much like, you know, fluff, but just
well, I
there-
don't want to get too political. Politicians, that's scary.
yeah,
but-
no, it's not. It's
Yeah.
you know, it's
Mayor
the,
McCheese
it's the,
over
it's
here.
the
No, but that's-
spiritual mayor. It's keeping that, you know, it's keeping that rock and roll spirit alive. You know, so
Oh, thank
I mean,
you.
you're definitely helping with that in a big way, musically and also with just like the clubs and.
Well, I still like New York. I mean, people say, well,
Yeah.
New York's changed and
I
everything.
love it lately.
Yeah, you've been digging it. I
Oh,
know. You almost
man.
went west on us.
I know. I get
He goes
stuck.
for a couple months
I
a
get
year.
stuck
Yeah.
in the
And then he
West.
comes
But when I come back, it's like, damn, New York.
But the whole world is gentrified. It's not just New York, you know.
Yeah, it still seems cool.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, and I'm, you know, I don't want to go back to the boroughs because we worked so hard to get away from those places. I had to live in Greenpoint when I had no money, and I had to live in Williamsburg when it was, you know, very different. And Queens now is a hip neighborhood, so I'm still in
Yeah.
New York, the old apple.
Well, I feel like, this is new for me because I'm in New York. In
Yeah,
fact,
you were in Brooklyn, yeah.
I was in Brooklyn forever, so it actually does feel like a reawakening in a way.
Well, it's kind of like, to me, I still feel like it's, I would say a Santa Claus town. Like, it's a place for dreamers. You know, you come here and you still have these things. It's a lot more expensive. We used to be able to live, my friend lived in the next building in the basement in a rat cage and sold records, or people lived in I lived in that storefront of that thrift store rehearsal room. But, you know, it's a lot harder, a lot more expensive, and you know, to turn a trick down here. But in some ways, you know, you walk out your door and it's all these cultures that come through here. In New York, in the 5 boroughs, there's a clash of people and energy. Walking is a great process for me for clearing out my head or writing songs.
Mm-hmm.
And in other places, like I tried L.A. and get in a
can't
car,
walk.
and it's very lonely.
I walk in LA. I treat LA like New York, but it's weird
Right.
because there's only like sort of homeless people, spiritual warriors, and junkies that walk.
And male prostitutes.
And they all look the same.
Yeah,
we all,
prostitutes,
you know.
They're all doing that strut, that swagger.
Yeah.
But there's a thing, you know, here, you know. So, but it's changed. It's hard, and you know, I just don't know where else I go. I still have that somewhat of that, you know, fantasy of, you know, but it's a reality too. If I want Wo Hop, you know, Chinese food at 3 a.m, I can go to Wo Hop. It's open. If I want to, I still go out to Coney Island. There's still certain things
It's
that
still
are
New York
that
City.
are New York, as much as we got Starbucks and Chase and all the stuff that everybody's got on every corner of the world. It used to be there were things here that you couldn't get anywhere else, and this was different. Each place you went to was different. Slowly, things have become really, really similar with the chains.
Yeah, but there's still stuff here that you can't get anywhere else.
Like these old bricks that are stones that are 100 and something years old and holding us up. So. They got rats here bigger than anywhere else, and hot dogs.
Yeah, but at least, like San Francisco, I guess. Anyway, I don't even want to go into what
New
they're
York's
dealing
my
with.
home. New York's my home. What about Chicago? It's got the Wrigley Field. It's got the Liars Club. It's got Wax Tracks. But New York's my home. What about Kansas City? What about Ohio, Joe? It's got, I don't know.
Is this a classic, or are you making this up?
Ray Charles song.
Oh, it's a Ray Charles?
What about L.A.?
Oh.
It's got Mandy Stein's place. It's got the Troubadour.
That's a nice place.
It's got Cantors. It's got Pinks. It's got Tofu hot dogs.
It's got Donnie Graves.
But New York's my home. What
New
about
York's
Portland? It's got Peter Buck.
Peter Buck.
You can see Kevin Kinney might pop by. It's got Dante's Emporium. It's got the place of Church of Elvis. It's got, what's that, Mary's Topless Dancing
Steve
Jukebox. But New York's my home.
That would be a good place to end the podcast, but I want to ask a few more questions. How long have we been going for?
An hour 25.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, let me get this one.
Right, I'm going to have to.
You got to go soon. All right, well, this one's from @Lilu2, and she wants to know, how do you tap into your subconscious in your muse?
Well, like I said, sometimes things just come walking around. Like if you come in, just an energy of, walking through the city and hearing different things, or going to a movie and being really quiet and listening, and a movie really affects you, and then suddenly you come out of it, you don't want to talk to anybody, and just go walk into your apartment and pick up the guitar right away, and just something just comes out. And I record it. I always record it to make sure I won't lose it. But, I used to record on cassettes and had them piled up all over the place.
Yeah. But now
And
you got
now
the
it's the iPhone or whatever, yeah. But like just getting in that state, you need.
How many
things to
voice
trigger
memos do you have on your iPhone?
Yeah, we'll
Like
have to
1,000?
count. Yeah, where'd that phone go? Yeah, somewhere. Did I get rid of the phone? Throw it out. But it also, you need input. I think there's a thing, Joe Strummer rule: no input, no output. But also, you can relate to this. It's like another one of our heroes there, Bob Marley. Lively up yourself. He used to say, go out, work out, get that blood going. But there's something about just a state of
oxygen.
Yeah. But also waking up, I'd sometimes before you turn everything on and answer your messages or hear anything, coming out of that state of sleep and just, just sitting down and writing what the first hour, just not thinking about it and just letting stuff go.
Yeah.
I was once on a
morning pages. Do you ever do that?
Probably in my own way. No, I don't know. What is that?
It's from The Artist's Way, where you just write 3 pages without every morning without thinking about it.
And, somebody once, I was on a panel in South by Southwest once for our songwriters, and they asked the people around me, I think the guy on the left was Pat D'Annunzio, another one we lost, of the Smithereens, great songwriter.
Yeah, great.
And someone said, what's your cure for writer's block? What do you do? And he said, ass in chair. And that was a big ass, too. But he said, ass in chair. But, it was like you just do it, and you got to just, but sometimes things come to you. I always try to carry a pen, and I'll write on things in the movie theater. If I hear things people say in bars or on the street, or someone says something in the van, sometimes that triggers a song and an idea. Just having those moments, reading or whatever. But really to move forward, I think getting out and just that forward motion is really good for creativity of the brain. And then I have another thing, too, where sometimes, you're playing other people's songs that you love and getting all this music or learning an album, and it just kind of opens up some different chords or different ways. Sometimes moving a capo on a guitar, you hear things different or different tunings. You play kind of tricks on yourself. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways I love to write is usually I feel pretty good on tour, because I know I have a gig, so I'm in a good mood, and going into a sound check, in different venues, I'll come in and I'll test my guitar and my voice over the microphone. And if the room sounds really good and I just walked in off the street, I'll just start writing at sound check, hearing my voice in a different way through the speakers, through the size of the venue, and I'll always get something. And then sometimes finishing it. The hard thing is it's like getting the initial blast and then crossing your T's and dotting your I's is the harder thing to go, all right, we got this structure and this and that. Now let's sit down and write the song.
How many songs do you have like in the bag that aren't on the new record?
We probably have about like another 12 or something.
And
like
are you going to do something with them?
Yeah, deciding whether it should be like another record. I mean, the last time we did that was with Outsiders in New York before the war. We made so many songs. We did 2 records, and people were like, oh, how'd you do that so fast? But, we had them all pretty. You added a few. I don't know. I have a few ideas for the next couple things that I want to do. I want to do a really mellow, like Hurt Me, Johnny Thunders acoustic-y kind of Harvest record. And I also then want to do something really loud and noisy and physical. While I can still do it, hopefully, before I, start tightening up my cummerbund and.
Come on.
Yeah, I want to do like something else, like so. I want to kind of do that, but this record, I'm really proud of and really excited to play it live.
It's
to take
great.
The songs,
I've been, it's been on my.
When is it coming out?
It's coming out August 30th. Yeah.
Oh yeah, August 30th. Sunset Kids.
Yeah, it's on this label, Wicked Cool, that Steve Van Zandt has going.
How'd you get that going? You do a radio show with him.
I just fill in. I been asked to do full radio there, which is so much fun because he's got this great library of music, and it's in everybody's car that has this Sirius satellite, and he loves for you to babble on about backstories and anecdotes of songs, and so it's real fun to do. But I'm so busy with other things that to do a full-time show would be hard. So when somebody goes on vacation, I go in and do some shows, and I'll interview some people too. I just interviewed Danita Sparks from L7, and that was a lot of fun. They have a new record with the original lineup too. But so he has a label, and he puts out a lot of bands, singles and stuff, and they heard the record. One of the kids that runs the label for him, this guy Dennis Mortensen, is great, and he we were recording. He has a studio up there. You've been there, Renegade, right next door to where the station is and the label, and so we were recording at that, and that was a lot of fun. And so music was seeping through the door. Yeah, Jeff Sanoff is a great guy. Jeff. Yeah, who worked on the record. Dude. He mixed most of the record and recorded, a lot of it here on the East Coast in Stevens Place, Renegade, and also Flux Studios. Big shout out there. So it just kind of came together naturally, and the crazy record business of 2019. But I'm excited. It's going to be on vinyl. It's one of your
best records, man, for sure.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to getting it out there, and but yeah, we get it on the vinyls with the packaging and the lyric sheet, the booklet.
How many tracks?
CD-ROM and ramen noodles. I think it's 14 songs.
14.
Yeah, it's a little long, but it's only 46 minutes, and it comes with a free RC Cola.
Mine's 10. Keith won't let me do more than 10.
Yeah. Well,
maybe 11, but
this was the first record where I was fighting with the manager to do less songs, and he wanted more.
Oh, he wanted more?
Not because he wanted more on there, because he couldn't decide. It was the weirdest thing. I've had every other manager producer go, get it down to 10 or 11, and I wanted less, and he pushed. And he's like, oh, you got to put this on there, and I was like, oh, come on, But it was sweet. I mean, it wasn't, he meant it, so we'll see. But
and it comes
short.
with a free RC Cola?
Yeah, just like the Chinese Democracy record.
Wait, what?
That's when the Guns N' Roses record came out, Chinese Democracy, they gave out a free RC Cola if you bought it at... Yeah. Remember that?
I don't remember that.
Look it up on the Google Meister.
That's an underrated album.
That's good.
It's a weird album.
Our friend Tommy Stinson wrote some songs on that record. He's got some writing credits on there.
Guns for a while.
He was in there a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
He would sing Sonic Reducer some nights when I saw them.
What do you think, Ehud? You got any more questions?
Well, we should plug. I think you're still touring now, even though the album's not out, and you're doing like special shows where you're doing the full fine art.
We're going out in June because we're doing some things to keep busy until the album comes out. So what else to do is to go backwards to go forwards. So we're going with Fine Art of Self-Destruction in the UK, a bunch of dates in Ireland, and then we come back and get ready for Sunset Kid stuff with Webster Hall on September 14th, and then London, and then we do the U.S. maybe with
But
Joseph.
you had a few shows in the city where you did all your albums recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I did something where we played a lot of the records, not all of them, but we did a bunch each night. We did a different album just to kind of
Coney Island.
yeah, to Coney Island, and then we throw in some new songs because until
you
people
got
know
to.
them, you always wonder how that's going to go over. But you got to get them dirtied up and play them in public.
Isn't it great when they go over though? Like you do a new one and it's like better than any of your old ones.
That's
Like
great.
That's the best feeling.
I'm always self-conscious. I always think of when I go see Motorhead and you're dying to hear like Ace of Spades and Stay Clean and Overkill or whatever, Iron Cross and Iron Fist, and then he's like, "Here's a new one," and he used to be like, "All right," it's a slow song, and then you're like, "That's okay." He's gonna play, "Killed by
break.
Death," and he goes, "Here's another new one. Here's a new one."
Yeah.
Lemmy, we miss you.
Lemmy.
Woo! What do we got here? We got the quarter-inch, the jacks. These cables. We call them cables. Overseas, they call them leads. You got a lead. Plug. Do a lead.
We got
Now, you
the
want
wrong
a lead?
leads,
You want to do a
'cause
fill?
these ones are mono.
Live at
Check,
leads,
1, 2.
baby.
Stuff like
It's
that.
not even.
Peter
Doesn't even
Leeds.
work.
Next podcast.
This is what it would have looked like.
Woo! Woo! Woo!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for podcast number 1.
Oh,
Come to where I'm
no.
from. How do we do? What do you think?
Woo! Woo!
And what
On a
terms?
scale of 1 to 10,
That
is
was
it?
great.
You can
I
edit
mean,
it
about
out.
I mean, Jesse
so,
killed it.
It's like,
You
come
can
on.
edit
Jesse
that. It's a
crushed it.
blabbermouth.
Yeah. All right, man.
Go
Thank you so
easy.
much, Jesse.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep doing these.
Love you, my brother.
Love you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Ehud, thank you.
Thank you, Ehud.
And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Cut.
But we're still rolling.